Welcome everyone to this webinar where I'll be talking about the 5WH of Agile Coaching. But before we get into that, let me just introduce myself. So my name is Vishal Prasad and I am an authorized trainer for a couple of IC Agile courses. And even this webinar is a tiny portion of the ICP ACC course that is provided by IC Agile. In the past, I have played multiple roles as a software development consultant, and I love to experiment with new techniques in order to improve deliveries. You can connect with me at Agile Maven. That's my social media handle. Or you can visit my website at www.agilemaven.in for more information about my work and about me. What we'll be discussing today is the 5WH of Agile Coaching. For those who are new to the term 5WH, it stands for the why, who, what, where, when, and how. And that's our agenda. So we'll go through these points in around 20 minutes to understand what Agile Coaching means, and then spend the remaining amount of time to answer a few questions, which you can add either in the Q&A window that you have on the Zoom application, or if you are not able to find that, you can just type it on the chat window, and we'll go through it at the end of this presentation. So let's go ahead and begin with the first question that we have about why do we need a coach? So when it comes to Agile coaching, there are many questions that come to our mind. And usually when a team or a manager approaches the boss with a request to hire an Agile coach, the question is, why do we need one? And it's a fair question, considering it's going to be an investment like any other, and it needs to be justified. So let's talk about why you would need one. Now, what you see over here in this picture, this is depicting a practice called Taylorism. It's a scientific management method that was invented by Frederick Taylor, and it basically entails that a big problem or any big problem can be broken down into smaller parts and then can be resolved as a part of a sequential process. So basically similar to an assembly line. And this actually works brilliantly in a repeatable environment where a problem is well understood and the solution is fixed, even if the solution needs, say, a certain level of expertise. Now, from a software development point of view, if you look at the SDLC process, this is also denoted in a similar way. And that's why it seems fair that we should just reuse Taylorism when we are even developing software. And in many of the cases, well, this may actually be true. Say, for example, if you want to deploy a software product onto multiple locations, you can simply repeat the same number of steps and it would be done. But at the same time, there are cases where the problem itself is not well understood and things don't work in the same way every time. And it's very common with software development. Now, in the former scenario, if you want to motivate people, the best way would be, say, if some people go on strike in your organization and they are not working, uh, you can simply motivate them by compensating them with more money. Or if you want to increase your deliverables, you can just add more manpower to it. Again, this is not something that applies to software in many of the cases. And if you have read the book, The Mythical Man Month, you would understand that software development is kind of different, as in we have this saying that 9 women cannot deliver a baby in 1 month. And at the same time, the entire point of carrot and sticks don't work well when it comes to people who are solving problems in a complex domain of the Kinnevian framework. So we'll discuss Kinnevian framework as well in some time. But people solving such problems, they basically have a pivotal question, and their question would be, what's my purpose? So people really want to know, why is it that they are doing something? Why do they exist? Why am I doing something? What value is it going to bring to anyone? And they basically are seeking a meaning for their existence, not just performing repetitive actions. And that's where a coach comes in. Now, Agile as a process itself is sufficient. You can basically set up an agile team in a day without any problem, and then you can go about doing your work if you can just select an agile framework, say for example. But an agile coach plays multiple roles within the team that helps individuals find their purpose and then direct their energy towards producing products by adding meaning to their work life. And that's basically why you would probably need an agile coach, or a coach for that matter. But if you see, I purposely say work life and not just life because there is a difference between an agile coach and a professional coach. Now, professional coach are basically coaches who are certified by ICF, that's the International Coach Federation. And what happens with professional coaches is they are responsible for holding the coachee's agenda. By the coachee's agenda, I mean if I have a professional coach for myself, I have an agenda for myself. That's how I want to proceed in life. And my professional coach is basically going to have a number of conversations with me who will help me to take that next step in my personal and professional growth. That's how I will take an action. Now, with an agile coach, there's a difference. They basically play a dual role or they have a dual agenda. They will still have a number of conversations with the coachee in order to help them reach their next goal when it comes to professional development. At the same time, the agile coach also acts as a mentor or a teacher who shares the agile experiences in order to guide the coachee towards the path of agility. And that's basically the purpose of an agile coach. So that's how an agile coach differs from, say, a professional coach or any other kind of coach that you might have worked with in the past. So if we say that this is who an agile coach is, then what really is the essence of agile coaching? Now, the essence of agile coaching for me is very simple. It's creating a high performance team. The problem is when we say creating a high performance team, how do you define high performance? Or rather, who defines high performance? And is the definition of high performance for one team similar for the other team? And it is the job of an agile coach to get these answers from the team itself so that the team can walk the talk. And this is easier said than done. Most of the times, the individuals are so indulged in their daily routine that they are unable to gauge their own potential. And I'll be a little philosophical over here, but the essence of agile coaching for me is to find the diamond in every coal block and then polish to shine to its full potential. So we also know that a diamond necklace will obviously shine more than a single diamond, and that also applies to your team. Finding the potential of every individual so that as a team, they deliver even higher than an individual. That's basically the essence of an agile coach. So where will one require an agile coach? So initially, when we were discussing Taylorism, I discussed about the Kinevian framework, and this is what it is. And I'll spend some time in order to make you guys understand what this is. So if you actually ask an agile coach, when do we need you? They may probably say that you need them all the time because they want to earn a living out of it. But jokes aside, if you actually have studied Canadian framework, which is designed by Dave Snowden, it talks about the types of problems that one usually encounters and the best possible way to solve these problems. And this works across two parameters: the knowns and unknowns of the problem itself and the possible solutions to the problem. Now, these four quadrants that you see over here, let's go through these one by one. The simple quadrant that you see over here, these are problems which are well known, and the solution for these are well known as well. And they are very simple. They have like universal steps for resolution. Say, for example, if you want to change a light bulb, we all know how to change a light bulb. But if we move slightly higher on the complicated domain or the complicated quadrant, this is where the problem is well known, the solution is also well known, but the solution may require some level of technical expertise in order to resolve it. So if you're working on an assembly line, say for example, where Taylorism fits perfectly in this quadrant, you may know how to build certain things, but in order to build that on an assembly line, you may need a level of technical expertise, which not everyone is capable of. And that's the complicated quadrant. Let's go on to chaotic quadrant next. This is a novel practice, as they say. This is basically when you have chaos, all right? And if there's chaos, the first thing that you do is act in order to resolve it. And then you would go and try and figure out what was the problem that actually caused the entire chaos. Say, for example, in case of a fire, the resolution is simple. You need to run and reach the nearest assembly area, which is a safe place. And later on, you can analyze the cause of the fire, which is a different thing. So that's the chaotic quadrant. Now, the situation where an agile coach fits the best is the complex quadrant, the emergent practice. And coincidentally, most of the agile frameworks like Scrum and Extreme Programming and others which are based on these also fit in this particular quadrant. The complex quadrant is where the problem and the solution are unknown. The only way to resolve it is through probing for alternatives so that the problem is well understood, and then the solution can be optimized in order to give the best possible results. That's where the coach can guide and mentor the teams and the individuals to perform their best. So that's a complex quadrant of the Canadian framework. So if we have this, we know who the Agile coach is, we know the essence of Agile coaching, and we know when we need to employ an Agile coach. The question is, when does the Agile coach retire? Now, probably they will retire when they have earned enough money out of you. But on a serious note, the ultimate responsibility of an Agile coach is to create enough knowledge and evangelism in the team to such an extent that the student actually becomes the teacher. Now, if you have heard of the Shuhari framework, the Japanese martial arts levels of seniority, an agile coach is basically no longer required once the team, or at least a few influential members in the team, have reached the final re level. At this point of time, either the coach should simply step down or try and ask these influential individuals to be at the forefront when it comes to coaching and helping or mentoring teams, or simply be open to hear from the team that, hey, you are no longer required, your services were great, but I think we are good for ourselves right now. And that's an indication where an agile coach is no longer required. And we usually, the agile coaches, when we have our coaching contracts, we keep our coaching contracts really flexible so that we can anticipate when this particular situation will arise and then take the next steps. So now we know what agile coaching is, what's the essence of agile coaching, who an agile coach is, when you don't need them anymore, where do they fit the best. The final question is, how will the agile coach actually benefit you? And when I speak about the benefits, my point of view is not from a financial perspective. Not all agile coaching assignments will be successful. Let's be honest about it. There will be certain failures on the way. That's how we learn, and that's the experience that we get. But if I want to accumulate the benefits as an agile coach, that would be a person who's playing multiple roles on the team in order to take the team to the next level. So they are your coaches, they are your mentors, they are your teachers, facilitators, problem solvers, collaboration conductors, conflict navigators, Basically, they are an unbiased friend. Now, as a part of your coaching assignment, an agile coach is supposed to be a brilliant secret keeper. They are the ones who gain confidence and then use the information to actually help you take that next step. So they are possibly your best work spouses. They can help you in your difficult times and they can guide you towards the right path. And that for me is the biggest benefit of an agile coach over anything else. Now, the question to ask is, aren't these people already there in your team? I mean, you already might be having a few managers, you have mentors, you have problem solvers. Why do you need an agile coach? An agile coach is necessarily not external in nature. They are not someone who you always get from a consultancy firm. You end up paying them loads of money and then they actually help you reach a certain level. An agile coach is or can be pretty much any team member, any manager, any mentor who you have worked with, and they have enough knowledge about agile software development or business agility in that case. As long as you have someone like that on your team, this entire setup can work for you really well. So when we started off by saying who is an agile coach, and we said that an agile coach is basically a mentor who plays a dual role, someone who understands agility and at the same time helps you grow. If you have someone like that in your team who is a good secret keeper, is unbiased, and can hold your agenda, that person is good enough to be called an agile coach, your team's coach, basically. And honestly, that is all that I had to discuss today. That's 20 minutes of the time that I had asked for. So the 5WH of Agile Coaching. So on that note, let's stop it. And we have 10 minutes where I know that most of you might be having a few questions about Agile Coaching. So let's go back to the chat window or the Q&A window and try and answer a few questions for you. In case you want to get in touch with me, you can email me on vishal@agilemavin.in. So let's see. Questions. So I have one question that says, can we implement this in ITSM and how good Agile is IMP compared with ITIL and Prince2/PMP? Okay, this is a question by Sheshuganti, and all right, it's actually a good question, and I've got this many times that if you have an ITSM environment or ITIL or Prince2 or PMP, where does Agile fit in? Agile or Agile software development in that case is basically a set of good practices. If you're going purely from the manifesto for software development point of view, then there are a number of values and principles which define Agile software development. Now, as long as your project confines or at least follows these principles and values, you're basically agile in nature. Now, if you have something like PMP or Prince2, which is a project management way of, or rather project management philosophy, or ITIL, which is mostly for service level agreements and service delivery, things like that, agility, or I'm simply not talking from a point of view of frameworks, but agility is simply learning from experience and trying to be as lean as possible. So if you want to consider, say, one portion of PMP, let's say resource management. Now, resource management from PMP's point of view is important, and we need to make sure that we have enough people on all the teams. But at the same time, if you're following the Agile framework, then you would understand that face-to-face conversations is given more importance in which case your resource management uh, say philosophy or your plan should be such that your team can actually have more face to face conversations between themselves and with the customer. So these are two different philosophies which can gel together in order to create good results. So I wouldn't say that we should just be PMP or just be Prince 2 or just be Scrum or just be extreme programming. There's basically a group where you need to take the best from everything that suits you the best and try and see how they gel together. I hope that answers your question. If not, then do ping me and then we can actually discuss about this. The next question I have from Yuvraj, is there any ICF certification, any course available in Bangalore? If so, what is the duration, fee, and how it will help my career? As I'm a software developer having 7+ years of experience. All right, so ICF is the uh, International Coach Federation. They have their own syllabus of how you can become a professional coach. It is not an agile coach, it's a professional coach. And it's not related only to software development, it's more of a personal coaching aspiration, people who want to actually do it. Uh, the professional line or the career path itself is completely different. It's it's oriented more towards helping one achieve better results in life and not just profession. So if you go to a professional coach, like I have a mentor called Nitin Ahire. He's an ICF certified mentor. He helps me with achieving my agenda. So if my agenda is to be a good software developer, he doesn't know anything about software development. He comes from a different background, but he helps me understand what is my potential and possibly where I can go by asking me various kinds of questions, powerful questions in place, and then actually getting the answers from me, not just actually providing answers. So ICF is a completely different way of coaching. Uh, any agile coaching philosophy will borrow things from it, but let's say that if you want more information about it, I can either get in touch, I can get you in touch with Nitin, who's my ICF certified coach, or you can go on their website and get more information. All right. Okay, the next question by Mohit. How can we ensure that agile coach role is over? What are the parameters for this? Yeah, so this is what we discussed. When does an agile coach retire? The ultimate goal is that an agile coach should no longer be needed by the team. So if the team thinks that they have enough evangelists within themselves and enough information or enough knowledge of agility within themselves, they can actually ask the agile coach to move on. Or the agile coach may actually reach a certain point where people are actually providing more results without his inputs. And at that time, there is actually a mismatch or a imbalance between the value and the cost. And that's basically when an agile coach would retire. There is no hard and fast rule. This is very subjective in nature, but that is how an agile coach will probably realize when their services are no longer required. Right. Mohammed asks, agile coach is required to be from technical background like developer or QA. What if someone is good with process and wants to train people on agile process and practices? That's an excellent question. uh, So many of the coaches that you will see in the industry, many of them are not from a technical background. So when I say technical background, they may have been software developers in the past, but they no longer have hands-on coding experience or QA experience or analysis experience and things like that. Having said that, an agile coach can actually come from various different paths. And if you read Lisa Atkins' book, it's a very good book about agile coaching. She mentions that there are three possible paths from where an agile coach can actually come up. One is you can be a process coach. So let's say you are brilliant with Scrum. Now, Scrum Masters generally have a responsibility where they need to coach the team and the organization about Scrum. And Scrum coaches can actually end up becoming brilliant Agile coaches. Sorry, Scrum Masters can end up becoming brilliant Agile coaches when it comes to process orientation. At the same time, you have something known as XP coach as well. So, extreme programming, someone who has been a technical lead, say, for a few years, and they understand the technical aspects. You can very well become an Agile coach who is much closer to the technical folks. Or you can be a project manager who has led projects for many years and now wants to become an Agile coach. But in all of these three cases, the basic factor is you're still a coach, and a coach as such, although performs the teaching role, but the teaching role is at a very low level. So if you consider Shuhari level again, Shu is basic, Ha is intermediate, and Ri is advanced. When your team is at the basic level, that's when the coach is actually teaching you. And possibly at that time, the team will need someone, say, a technical coach so that they understand the development aspects. When the team moves to the intermediate stage, that is when the coach actually stops teaching and rather starts inquiring more about what is it that you can do. And that is how the true potential of the individual and the teams come out. And at the re level, the coach basically even stops questioning. It's the team who comes to the coach and says, hey, we should do this because this is what will create the next best result. So, yeah, your question is perfectly valid. You may need technical coaches. Rather, I would say that you should have technical coaches at the basic level because they are the best possible guides that you can ever have. But they may not be needed all the time. A coach is basically a person who can get the best results out of you instead of providing the best results. And that's the thing that you want to focus on more as an Agile coach. Okay, then there's a next anonymous attendee ask a question: how to get Agile Coach certification with respect to software development. So there, if you go on the IC Agile website, you will get information about Agile Coaching certifications and Enterprise Agile Coaching certifications. I am also authorized to teach the ICP ACC certification. That's a certification for Agile Coach only. Or if you are interested in doing something at a grander level, you can go through Scrum Alliance, where you have certified team coach and certified enterprise coach. It's different from IC Agile perspective, as it's not just a training; it's more about the experience that counts. And then IC Agile also has something similar, but that comes at a different level where you can be an expert Agile coach. So you can go through both of these websites. You'll get enough information about the certifications. Irfan Ali Sheikh asks, how can Agile Coach handle people and culture in organization? Okay, very good question. So let's talk about culture first. And this is what we actually discuss quite a lot. We say Agile is a mindset, right? It's a culture. It's an organization change. The question is that if you actually want your organization to change or to adapt a certain kind of culture, that first needs to be defined. And most of the times, organizations miss this step. Organizations feel a number of times that the culture exists and it is their job to preserve the culture, whereas the first step for any culture should be to actually define what it is. Say, for example, if you have a culture of open communication, and if a new person joins your organization, they should be made aware of it, that open communication actually is the culture of this organization. Now, unless you have specified this somewhere, maybe verbally or in written, people will not come to know about it. Maybe ultimately they'll start doing it, but not from the first day. So, culture is something that first should be defined by the organization so that people can actually start believing in it. It's not about following it, it's about believing in it, right? And how Agile Coach can handle people. So, people management, or rather people development, is something that an agile coach should do, and I'll probably not be able to give you a context about that in this manner because it's slightly bigger topic. But let's say, for example, that there is a lot of conflict between the team members about a certain situation, or there is a difficult person to handle who's always directing or influencing everything that happens in your team. An agile coach in that case should play the role of a conflict navigator. He should be in a position to identify the conflict and then find the best possible way to negate the conflict so that you can get the best result out of the team. So yeah, there are multiple methods of achieving that, and we do cover that in the detailed trainings. But yeah, it will be a slightly more elaborate question to answer for this platform. All right, that brings us to the end of our time and end of the questions as well. If you have more questions, please feel free to write to me at my email address. Again, is vishal@agilemaven.in. You can also search for me on my social media handle @agilemaven. Possibly Google should give you that as the first result. For more information about Agile certified coaching trainings all over the India, you can write to support@knowledgehut.com. Shahbaz has just pinged the details on the chat window, so you can take a look at that. Or you can just visit the Knowledge Hut website and you can get more information over there. With that, thank you very much for attending this webinar. I hope it was helpful, and I would love to see you next time. Thank you very much.